Selecting the right access control model is very important. It is a design decision which is going to impact all the future policies and security of that organization. So it is essential to make an informed decision. However, let me put a question to you. Let's say in a hospital, they are using a RBAC or role-based access control model in which there are different roles such as doctors, nurses, and so on. And now the situation is that it's very late at night and no doctor is currently available and a patient is feeling very sick. The nurse needs to access the patient's medical records so that she can give him some medicine. Now the issue is that the nurse role, which has been defined in RBAC, doesn't allow her to access the medical records of that patient. It does allow doctors, but no doctor is currently available with that role. So what should be done? Here's the thing. It's a common misconception to think that all the 4 access control models are mutually exclusive. Sometimes you can combine different models. So for example, in this case, we need some sort of break glass functionality. Okay. So for example, RBAC could be used to handle the baseline access. So in this hospital, the roles are already well defined. You have a nurse role. They can access basic records, not the detailed patient records. And you have a doctor role, which have much broader access to the medical data of the patient. However, you can also combine, you can use a hybrid strategy and use ABAC, which adds a context-aware flexibility layer, sort of like break glass functionality in this scenario. So there could be an ABAC rule. For example, if the subject is nurse and patient ID is, for example, XYZ, and the context is that emergency flag is true, which means that it is an emergency. And for example, the department is healthcare or whatever. So this is the key thing. There could be a context-aware attribute or characteristic of emergency. In that case, it will allow temporary access to the nurse with audit logging. So you see, all of these models are not necessarily mutually exclusive. And in fact, in a lot of cases, they make sense to use a hybrid strategy. Let me give you another example. Let's say you work in an organization and all of the roles are very well defined. For example, there's the CEO role, senior managers, system administrators, software engineers, and all that hierarchy that has naturally been translated to RBAC because it seems very natural. You already have roles and permissions and you're using an RBAC layer. However, now think of things like, for example, a lot of companies allow remote work, right? And then they also have like their systems or databases on cloud. So you could potentially use an ABAC in addition to that baseline RBAC. And in that ABAC, you can put restrictions like, for example, allow access to this resource or this database if the employee is accessing the resource via the company provided laptop, which has all the security tools installed, and block it if it's using his personal laptop. Similarly, you can also have, for example, allow access to the cloud if the employee is using a VPN on the company provided laptop, and so on and so forth. So in real life, we often combine different access control models to suit the use case. And that's something very important to understand as a cybersecurity specialist.